For each one of us, making connections, it's what we're all about. It brings our life meaning and purpose. And neurobiology shows that our nervous system is literally hardwired to connect to each other. And technology has provided more ways than ever for us to connect. Now, this is what I use to connect to the broader world. Anybody recognize this? So on the left is a wonderful machine called a coupler modem, about the size of a Kleenex box, 2 very good-looking rubber cups. On the right is an ancient device called a rotary dial telephone. And you would stick a finger in one of those little holes, go all the way over to the stop or let go. So for me to use technology to connect, I had to dial about 9 or 10 of those rotary dials. And then you had to listen for the computer on the other side. And that computer kind of sounded like someone stepping on a cat. It was this screech thing, but you had to listen for it, and the second you heard the cat screeching, you shoved it into those rubber cups, and voila! You're connected to the broader world. Easy peasy. A lot easier today, isn't it? And when I think about technology and how it's connected us, I wanted to go back in time a little bit. I decided not to go back maybe when we hit rocks together. I only went back 170 years, about 7 generations. And the one I wanted to talk about first is the very first telegraph that was sent. And it was sent in 1844 by Samuel Morse of Morse code fame. And Samuel Morse sent the first telegram from Philadelphia to DC. And he thought, what message should I send in this first telegraph? So the message he chose to connect with was, what has God wrought? 30 years later, that first telephone call, a lot of us are very familiar with this. Good old Alexander Graham Bell calls to his assistant in the next room, Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you. It was another 40 years before a timeline mark, and it was more of a broadcast. In 1920, the first radio broadcast. It was out of Detroit to bring the news to the world. Another 20 years, the first TV cast of note was in the 1939 World's Fair. It was still experimental, but it broadcast out that World's Fair. Another 30 years, what I mark as the start of the internet. It wasn't quite called the internet yet. It was called ARPANET, Advanced Research Project Agency. And it was connecting a computer at UCLA to a computer at Stanford University. And they had to log in the Stanford University into the UCLA University computer. And so they actually had to send the word login over this connection, this network. Never been done before. So they're actually on the phone making sure it works. So UCLA sends over the L. Did you get the L? We got the L. Send over the O. Did you get the O? We got the O. Send over that G. No G. Only the L and O. Almost the first LOL moment. But that didn't stop them. That, of course, began the explosion of the interconnectedness of computers. All of the university systems connected computers, even here at Minnesota, not UW, University of Minnesota, sorry. No riots, no riots. I'll redeem myself, I promise. But these interconnected computers exploded around the world. And to get to each destination, you had to type in this long address, ended up being called an IP address. And to help bring order to that chaos, a web page was born. And so the very first worldwide web page was published in 1993 and let us very easily be able to connect through links by clicking on these web pages. Now let's jump down to the lower timeline. You can see things get more compressed. 1998, Google was founded. 2004, Facebook. 2010, Instagram. 2012, Snapchat. Last year, Amazon Echo, connection via voice. And Vidku, which is a private video sharing service that was born right here at the University of Minnesota. Now, I claim 2 spots on this timeline. You can see the aforementioned coupler modem. I did that in 1980, connected to the broader world. And in 1997, created the very first CaringBridge website. And it was created for 2 very good friends of mine who were having a very premature baby. And it was for any time someone's jolted out of that normal life and thrust into those roles of patient and caregiver to connect to their friends and family, and was able to connect my friends Joanne and Darren and their baby Bridget to that broader family. Now, Bridget's too short 9-day life has left the legacy of CaringBridge. Now, all these points on here, I think about the whole spectrum as something I call social technology, technology that lets us socially connect. And what's interesting about this is how compressed the last few years are when this explosion of anytime, anyway, ways that we can connect has come upon us. And I think when you have a compression of abilities that speed up, many times we stumble to keep up. I mean, past generations literally had decades of new ways they connected. They had decades to figure it out. They had generations to figure it out. We've had literally probably the last 10 years when there's been this explosion of what we can connect with and how we can create content. But I've seen in the last 19 years how powerful being able to connect can be. How when someone's going through a health journey, be able to connect with love, hope, compassion helps in the healing. Earlier this year, CaringBridge passed its 2 billionth visit. 2 billion acts of love, hope, compassion that has helped everyone be lifted up. And those connections and messages are just an unbelievable channel of emotional, therapeutic, and physical support. And research shows that what we put out in the universe does have an impact. Psychologists at the University of California, Berkeley, shows that people report an uplifted mood anytime they receive or send a text to friends and family. A study at Harvard Business School and University of British Columbia shows when you do a kind act, you're happier. And when you're happier, you're more likely to do another kind act. And I see this research play out day in, day out at CaringBridge. And when I think about social technology being used for kindness, for positivity, for compassion, I wanted to put a tagline to it. So I thought about how we can put this out and say it forward. Let's even put a hashtag on it. Hashtag, say it forward. And it's, of course, kind of a play on pay it forward. And pay it forward, the concept of the ripple effect of a good deed. And more recent, pay it forward's been around a long time. It's even mentioned in Greek philosophy. But more recently, it was a book. It was a movie a few years ago. If you haven't seen Pay It Forward, find it. It's really good. It starred Kevin Spacey. Now, most of you probably know Kevin Spacey now more as Frank Underwood in House of Cards. He pays it forward a little differently. But I've seen us use social technology and come together and use it for hope and compassion, mainly in big life events, in crisis around the world. Last November, on the attacks on Paris, that French flag was over every profile picture, Eiffel Tower in the form of a peace symbol. What a great way for us to come together and heal. Last month, Belgium, And just last week, it rained down purple when we found out Prince had died. It brought us together. It helped us heal. And I see that play out in Caring Bridge, but I know that that type of healing power exists in any social technology that we use. This is a great example of using social technology in just a simple, positive way. So I saw this last month, and it just made me smile, and I'm one of the likes, and I can just see the daughter rolling her eyes. Dad, you're not going to even get 98 likes. But yet, within 24 hours, he had way closer to 98,000 than 98 likes. Look at that smile. It lifted him up. And even though his daughter got to, I told you so, she was lifted up. And anyone that was part of that little exchange was lifted up. A couple months ago, I was driving from Milwaukee to the Twin Cities. I was alone in the car, so I was pounding around on the radio, and I landed on a podcast on NPR. And they were interviewing an author, first-time author. His name was Kevin Hazard. He had just published the book, 1,000 Naked Strangers. And it was about his time, 10 years as a paramedic, emergency responder. And what struck me was when he talked about when he was with people as they died, as he held their hand as they died. And there were 3 commonalities that he talked about. When people were dying, many times they wanted to reveal a regret of something they had or had not done. As their life faded, they wanted to know that they would be remembered. And as their time ran out, they wanted to know that their life had value. And what struck me was how powerful it can be that we could give this to each other every single day, not as we're taking our last breath, but as we live and breathe. What a gift we can give each other. And of course, I see this play out, the heartfelt messages on Caring Bridge of love, hope, memory, sharing, is the lifeblood of Caring Bridge. But it doesn't have to be when you have a terminal diagnosis or in the back of an ambulance. It can happen every single day. And social technology makes it so easy to do. Studies show that 80% of us say we're never more than 2 hours, our phone is, never more away from us more than 2 hours. In fact, there's other studies that say that 45% of us can't remember the last time we didn't have our phone. Being able to have these type of messages can help you stand out among the noise. In that compressed time frame, as we're setting our norms around social technology, it's important to be saying things in a kind, positive, pay it forward, say it forward way to counteract some of the scope creeping of unkindness, bullying, negativity. It's like an antidote for us of that scope creep. I think about it as each one of us have a superhero power. Here's some examples I just grabbed on the various social technologies, social platforms. On the left is a Snapchat, and they do last more than 10 seconds sometimes. In the middle, Caring Bridge, just messages of inspiration, support, memories that are shared. You can never go wrong with some great emojis. And I like any tweet that has "Hi, Mom" in it. But these are just simple examples of ways that you can say it forward, and we are creating words and content more than we ever have in history. And we need to think about what we're saying forward, the reach we have, the attitude we have, not only now, but in the future. I've been seeing firsthand the power of social technology and connections when someone's going through a health journey for the last 20 years. And I've been enamored with technology ever since I shoved that handset into those rubber cups. And I'm a true believer that technology makes our lives better and that these connections can make us stronger as people, as society, as a world. And I am super excited to see what's next on that timeline. Think of the ways we will continue to connect anytime, anywhere. How can we make sure that it is as fulfilling as possible? Our legacy is going to be left with what we say forward. You know, past generations, their legacy of what they said forward is probably up in the cedar chest in the attic, in a nice little envelope, wrapped maybe in a ribbon. And every once in a while, their loved ones will go and read it. You know, it's probably in cursive. Anyone know? But what we put out there, and our legacy is out there in the world. It's imprinting itself on the world. So if you're not thinking about hashtag Say It Forward today, please do tomorrow. In fact, I know 80% of you have a phone, so let's do it right now. Think about pulling out that phone, saying it forward. Some hope, love, compassion, fun, positivity. Tweet me at Sona. But let's start the ripple effect of Say It Forward. Thank you.